you can't, tell people about the station anyway. But if you can't donate, then that's a really good way to spread the word and loosen those purse strings, potentially. It's always good. You can. Good. If you can, if you could, if you should, if you would, it'd be nice to have some money in the bank. So if you like my song and dance, I'm here all week. Yes, but that's important. Please do that. And the archives are still free, so knock yourself out. And look and listen to whatever you like.
Yeah,
now, we are talking...
Mare, she ain't what she used to be.
She ain't what she used to be. She ain't what she used to be. The old grandpa singers. You gotta love that. Okay, now, we have been talking about the hypothesis, obviously, as you know, for the last few weeks. It's a long thing. We are 2/3 through, I'm happy to say, which is great. After this, I think it's going to be a major overhaul of the text, and it is now long enough to maybe even be published. So let me just clean that up for everybody. But we talked about the pineal gland last time. What is the pineal gland? Really, what do people think it is? What the mythology think it is? We haven't really got into that much detail on that one. But as you know, the pineal gland sits smack bang in the middle of your brain. It's a singular gland rather than having a partner, co-conspirator, as it were. And it also is subject to fairly significant calcification, more than anything else.
Yes,
it also
is.
Receives the second most blood, apart from the kidneys.
Mm-hmm.
It has a massive blood flow coming into it. Again, kidneys highest, pineal gland second highest. Very interesting stuff, right? We are talking a little bit about now the pineal gland in society and culture. And René Descartes, who said, I think, therefore I am. Well, he said, the actual phrase is a lot longer, but I won't bore you with it, but that's what he said. He actually dedicated much of his time to the study of the pineal gland. And he called it the principal seat of the soul. So he was a fairly profound thinker, as you can imagine. We still know his name some 300-400 years after his demise. And he believed it to be the point of connection between the intellect and the body. Now, I happen to think the same. Because ultimately you have to ask yourself, where do we originate? And I have to take a slight departure from the text here to just discuss this concept. We are who we are. That seems like a very simplistic statement, but what are we really? What makes us us? It is the sum of our experiences, some would say. It is our genetic makeup, others would opine, and others still would say, well, it is the sum total of our biological and I guess non-biological makeup, which is of course the mind. But some people will argue, well, the mind is just electrical impulses in the brain. Well, is it? Is it? We don't know. We know that the brain seems to be a quantum-operated system on its base level. It's got neurons, which have 5 connections to other neurons, which is pretty powerful, and it's actually a magnitude higher than any of the binary computers that we have today, just to be clear. And the brain is an amazing thing. It can actually function with many chunks of it missing. It still functions. And we used to think that certain areas of the brain are responsible for certain things, and once they're gone, that's it. You can't do them anymore. Not true. The brain rewires. And even memory, we used to think about these memories had this, and now it seems memory is distributed across the brain, like a hologram, almost, one might think. But we don't know. We don't know how it all hangs together. We don't know what mind is. We don't know what consciousness is. We can't pinpoint it. We cannot. But it has to come from somewhere, right? It has to come from, it has to develop. It has to, or it's just given to us. Who knows? Consciousness, self-awareness is not unique to us. Mm-hmm. It's not unique to us. Other animals have it. And when I say other animals, I consider us animals because we're part of the animal kingdom. You can jump up and down as much as you like, but you are. So never mind that we might have been interfered with at some point, but it is certainly a true statement to say that self-awareness exists in other species. So that can't be the only thing, right? There must be other things as well. And in fact, would we be able to inhabit those other species as well, the way we inhabit human bodies and brains? So the question then becomes, well, where does it come from then? And for the longest time, a lot of mystery schools, for thousands of years, in fact, maybe longer than that, who knows, people thought of the pineal gland. We'll get to that in a second, and the prevalence of the pineal gland in culture, both openly and cryptically, if you will, because it is such a unique organ in the body. And what is even more important is that people actually thought to assign it this importance, because it is tiny. It is tiny. It's a tiny gland. And if you open a brain, you're liable to miss it. But we haven't. And maybe in some dim and distant past, science, or whatever passed for science in those days, was a lot more advanced than we are today. And they understood what the pineal gland actually was, thus assigning it the importance that it seems to have had throughout all of our history. Now, Descartes attached significance to the gland because he believed it to be the only section of the brain to exist as a single part rather than one half of a pair, which is true. He argued that because a person can never have more than one thought at a time, external stimuli must be united within the brain before being considered by the soul. He was one of those guys. And he considered the pineal glands to be situated in the most suitable possible place for this purpose, located centrally in the brain and surrounded by branches of the carotid arteries. That's the profuse blood flow we mentioned. So that's his reasoning. And I'll be honest with you, that makes good sense to me as well. But then, of course, we're getting into very shaky territory here. We're talking about the soul now. Clearly something that we can't measure and quantify and chop up, and weigh. It's just a concept. That's good. But is it possible that we are more than simply flesh robots? And I submit here that it is. And I also further submit that, in fact, we are more than just flesh robots. And there's more to us than the sum of our parts. So if you take all the physical parts, and you look at them all, I think there's more to us than that. There's a greater us, right? And I think the pineal gland is, in fact, key to opening up that door. And funnily enough, I can't say, can I say this? Opening the third eye in a lot of mystery schools is really, really important. Now, the third eye doesn't sit in the middle of your forehead. Okay? People have you believe that it does, but it doesn't. It's actually between your eyes, slightly above the bridge of the nose. And that is exactly where the pineal gland sits, a few centimeters back in the middle of your brain. Numerous spiritual philosophies contain the notion of an inner third eye that is related to the eye chakra and also to the pineal gland. These are attributed to mystical awakening or enlightenment, clairvoyant perception, and higher states of consciousness. This idea occurs historically in ancient Central and Eastern Asia, as well as in contemporary theories relating to yoga, theosophy, Hinduism, and pagan religions, and New Age spiritual philosophies as well, of course. Dave?
Okay, so now we're moving on to the actual shape, the pine cone shape. And this is the prevalence of it in our society. In the Vatican, there is a large statue of a pine cone. The scepter the Pope uses has a pine cone on top. Also, I should mention that the lotus flower has a very similar shape and was used in the East to convey the same occulted message. Sufficiently similarity exists between the Masonic Hiram And that's correct, I believe. And the Kundalini of Hindu mysticism to warrant the assumption of the Hiram may be considered a symbol also of the spirit fire moving through the sixth ventricle of the spinal column. The exact science of human regeneration is the lost key of Masonry. For when the spirit fire is lifted up through the 33 degrees or segments of the spinal column, so it says in the text, and enters into the domed chamber of the human skull, it finally passes into the pituitary body Isis, where it invokes Ra, the pineal gland, and demands the sacred name. Meki?
Operative Masonry, in the fullest meaning of that term, signifies the process by which the Eye of Horus is opened. E.A. Wallace Budge has noted that in some of the papyri illustrating the entrance of the souls of the dead into the judgment hall of Osiris, the deceased person has a pine cone attached to the crown of his head. The Greek mystics also carried a symbolic staff, the upper end being in the form of a pine cone, which was called the thyrsus of Bacchus. In the human brain, there's a tiny gland called the pineal body, which is the sacred eye of the ancients and corresponds to the third eye of the Cyclops. As its name signifies, the pineal gland is the sacred pine cone in man, the eye single, which cannot be opened until the Hiram, the spirit fire, is raised through the sacred seals, which are called the seven churches in Asia. And then, of course, we have a whole bunch of images which are very hard to see on radio. One is the papal staff, another one depicting the catechus, which has a pine cone on top, of course, and is flanked by two wings, I might say here, on the Whitehall building in New York City. And the key thing here is this, right? The pineal cone image, or the lotus flower, as it were, is always flanked by two identical things. In my mind, that signifies the two hemispheres of the brain. Okay? It is hardly ever not flanked. There's one here from Angkor Wat, where you've got the Buddha and with hair shaped like a pine cone flanked by two elephants. There's a pine cone staff of Osiris, which is flanked by two snakes. You've got the Pina in Rome, which is flanked by two peacocks, and so on and so forth. We also have pictures of Sumerian gods. God Marduk here, who has a pine cone in his hand. We've got the Roman god Bacchus, as we mentioned. He carries a staff topped with a pine cone. And even Hitler's desk on this panel had two staffs crossed, which had pine cones at the top. So there are many more other examples of pine cone or lotus flower imagery in our cultures. And I think it goes to show just how much importance was given to that shape. Now we always say, oh, it's just a, but what does it have to do with the pineal gland? Well, you have to make certain leaps in your logic, not necessarily leaps, but certain deductions where you go, okay, well, that makes sense all of a sudden, right? Because it is flanked by two hemispheres of the brain, and in the middle is the pine cone. Mm-hmm. The two images flanking it are the same, as our brain hemispheres are the same. They mirror images almost of each other. Okay? It is really important to understand just how much importance the ancients, and even today, it seems, we give to the pineal gland. Dave?
An article in Science News stated the following, quote, here it's the full text is the quote, I won't stop. The retina and the pineal gland are the organs primarily responsible for the body's recognition and sophisticated processing of external light. Until recently, these two organs in mammals seemed to have little else in common and were consequently studied by separate groups of scientists. But a new alliance of researchers is now exploring striking similarities that are speeding research efforts in both fields. Their findings suggest that the pineal gland was the evolutionary precursor to the modern eye. While it turned out that the retinal rhythm is independent of the pineal gland, once the groups of scientists began working together, they discovered surprising similarities between the two organs, including the presence of photoreceptors. Furthermore, a study published in Experimental Eye Research revealed that although the mammalian pineal gland is considered to be only indirectly photosensitive, the presence of proteins in the pineal gland, which are morally involved in phototransduction, light sensing, in the retina, raised the possibility that direct photonic events may occur in the mammalian pineal gland. That's the end of the quote from their story. Ooh, that was a big lightning bolt. I think even the audience will hear the thunder when it comes through. In the 1990s, a British scientist, Jennifer Luke, here it comes, discovered that fluoride accumulates to strikingly high levels in the pineal gland. It says Luke 2001.
Wow, I can hear that.
Yeah, it's huge. That was a huge strike. Still going, same spot.
Wow.
Oh, it's War of the Worlds again, Mickey. Oh, that takes me back. So the pineal gland is located between the two hemispheres of the brain and is responsible for the synthesis and secretion of hormone melatonin. Melatonin maintains the body's circadian rhythm. That's the sleep-wake cycle. It regulates the onset of puberty in females and helps protect the body from cell damage caused by free radicals. While it is not yet known if fluoride accumulation affects the pineal gland function, hello, I'm over here. Preliminary animal experiments found that fluoride reduced melatonin levels and shortened the time to puberty. That was Luke 1997. Based on this and other evidence, the National Research Council has stated that fluoride is likely to cause decreased melatonin production and to have other effects on normal pineal function, which in turn could contribute to a variety of effects in humans. That comes from NRC 2006, page 256. I'm a walking example, Mickey, of the old tooth. It gets in. It sure does get in. The tooth that used to be a pineal gland.
That's wonderful. Look, I want to spend some time on this, but let's just... the pineal gland has the highest levels of fluoride in the body. That's just... we know this now, right? As a calcifying tissue that is exposed to a high volume of blood flow, the pineal gland is a major target for fluoride accumulation in humans. In fact, the calcified parts of the pineal gland, hydroxyapatite crystals, contain the highest fluoride concentrations in the human body, up to 21,000 parts per million. Higher than either bone or teeth. Let me say this again, higher than either bone or teeth. Luke 1987 and 2001. Although the soft tissue of the pineal gland does not accumulate fluoride to the same extent as the calcified part, it does contain higher levels of fluoride than found in other types of soft tissue in the body, with concentrations of about 300 parts per million that are known in other contexts to inhibit enzymes. So these high fluoride concentrations can actually inhibit enzymes. While the impacts of these fluoride concentrations in the pineal gland are not yet fully understood, studies have found that calcified deposits in the pineal gland are associated with decreased numbers of functioning pinealocytes and reduced melatonin production, as well as impairment to the sleep-wake cycle.
Once again, it's like reading from my diary, Mickey. That's what.
Yeah, I know.
Like.
It's and again, but it does. Funnily enough, though, it does tie really well into the hypothesis, because as we have stated, in the dream state, I believe, we believe, that we get out of this reality and explore the actual world that we belong to. Because in your dream, everything makes sense as you dream it, right? Obviously, it does, right? But then when you wake up, none of it makes sense normally. And you go, well, what happened here? You don't really know. There's one further thing we need to discuss before we talk a bit more about the pineal gland, which is a study that was undertaken by Jennifer Luke. In fact, this is the very same Luke that was cited in the article we just shared with you. Why don't you take us through some of all of it? In fact, it's just the abstract.
I understand. School of Biological Sciences, University of Surrey, Guildford, UK, Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology, the Royal London Hospital. Fluoride deposition in the aged human pineal gland. Abstract. The purpose was to discover whether fluoride accumulates in the aged human pineal gland. In conclusion, this study presented evidence that fluoride readily accumulates in the aged pineal. Fluoride may also accumulate in a child's pineal. Significant amounts of calcification have been demonstrated in the pineals from young children. This was Cooper, 1932, Wertman, 1968, blah, blah, blah. There's a whole bunch of things there. In fact, calcification of the developing enamel organs and the pineal gland occur concurrently. If fluoride does accumulate in the child's pineal, this needs verification. The pinealocytes will be exposed to relatively high level local concentrations of fluoride. This could affect pineal metabolism in much the same way that high local concentrations of fluoride in the developing enamel organ affect ameloblast function. Research is presently underway to discover whether fluoride affects pineal physiology during childhood, specifically pineal synthesis of melatonin.
So it's almost as though you're slamming the door shut on your escape hatch. If you can.
That's right.
My opinion. Now, but we are living in an age where we think it's a good idea to add fluoride to the water. Now, there is evidence, I want to say here, that shows that fluoride in the water seems to increase or have a positive effect on dental health. That seems to be a case, right? That seems to be something that is happening. Are there other factors? I don't know. But certainly we do notice that less cavities seem to occur. And the idea here is, the theory at least, that while the water that's being treated with fluoride is not in a medical grade kind of prescription or treatment, and certainly fluoride should never be taken internally, right? You should not have fluoride pills that you take. It's a topical treatment. As you go to the dentist, you get fluoride treatment when they clean your teeth or whenever, you get this topical paste. And you can't eat for half an hour or drink for half an hour.
You're not to consume it, right? Yeah,
that's correct. Now, the theory is that in the water, the fluoridated water spends enough time in your mouth to positively affect your teeth. That's the theory, right? Okay. So ingesting it does nothing for you. If you're drinking fluoride water that never touches your teeth, let's say you have a straw and it never touches your teeth, it does nothing for you. But the theory is that if you gargle or you swish the water on your mouth or whatever you do, maybe when you brush your teeth or whatever it is, then it is enough to positively affect your dental health. Okay. But it also negatively affects your pineal gland. And we don't really fully understand yet what that actually means. Right? And that's see, this is where it gets into the metaphysical. Do we believe any of the stuff that Dave and Maggie have just told us? And in fact, been telling us for the last, 10 odd shows, something like that. Well, you don't have to, of course. It's entirely up to you. But there's a growing body of evidence, and this is evidence that is thousands of years old too, right? That we are more than just, like I said, flesh robots. There's a lot more to us, and our consciousness has to be somewhere, right? Or has to come from somewhere. And I also believe that we are not at all what we could be in this particular matrix. We are much less, and quite limited, quite handicapped, as it were. And the only thing that is sort of keeping us sane, I guess, in many ways, is having a pineal gland, which allows us to escape this reality, at least during our dream cycles. And actively, people are working on slamming that door shut. They're actively working on it. They're adding fluoride to the water. Now ask yourself, why is that? Right? Why do they add fluoride to? Well, for better dental health, etc. Sure. It's always that. So you start small and people like it. But what is the actual agenda? Right? What does the fluoride do to the rest of your body and then to your pineal gland? It seems to calcify.
It's a very, very good question, because when I think about the delay in science from someone's thinly written proposal to do something, and then the scientific first we have a medical issue, then they get reported and no one really does much, and the natural process from government is to wait until it's severe enough, until there's enough pushback to then pay for some kind of study in some way. Privateers like Luke were trying to press the buttons to say, I think we should be looking at this. But fluoride, I have to say, was introduced into where I live something like 10 years ago or 8 years ago. And it never was. It never was in the water. Now it is. And so, to be honest, if you were trying to see the timeline from it being, it is a poison. So putting that in, diluting it, putting it in water and having people consume it, and for what purpose? If it does the teeth thing and that thinly written, submission, fine. I'd be happy. That's okay. But there's other side effects. You could say cigarettes in the same vein. You could say cigarettes produce dopamine, and that's good, right?
Yeah.
But they also can provide with the user with diminished lifespan.
Oh,
boo, right? But yeah, and let's wait 60 years for that to become a thing, right? Yeah, right. So this is the trouble, Becky, that I see. So, what is there a true hidden agenda of putting fluoride in the water? And as I could say without any proof whatsoever, that if there was, what would it be? I can ask the question. And was the decision to do it based on any experiments from Montauk?
Uh-huh. Well, we do know the Nazis used to fluoride water as well, right?
Yeah.
So that's an endorsement if you ever looking for one. right there. Ah, what? Who said that? But yeah, look, the Nazis also introduced gun control. In fact, any authoritarian government. You know what Napoleon did when he came to power?
Gun control.
He closed the coffee houses because that's where revolutionary speech would ferment.
Yeah, that's right.
And people would come and get together and have all kinds of ideas. No more ideas. Okay, no more ideas. Yeah. Let's do away with these ideas.
Because they're all against me, I'm sure that's what it is.
Nothing good can ever come of ideas. What?
Where are you now, Napoleon? I keep asking.
Yeah. Look, always ask yourself why things are being done. I know we discussed this, we mentioned this ad nauseum. I get it, but it's important. You only see what they want you to see. You only hear what they want you to hear, and all the things that are happening in your world are happening for a reason. Why are things happening? Right? And again, I do urge you on a very basic level. This is like the first layer of conspiracy, if you want to call it that, which you can actually prove. read the Confessions of an Economic Hitman, the latest edition. Get the latest edition, which has the Chinese component in it. If you can, please do. If you can get the book, you should be able to. I got it here in Australia. It's all good. Please go ahead and read it. And it will explain, at least in some detail, the history of the last, I want to say, 60, 70 years. Okay? You will understand a lot more about why things have happened the way they've happened. And this is the same. Whenever something, ask yourself this. What did we actually get into our bodies with the vaccines? What? It used to be a vaccine, the virus, let's say, is chopped up into bits, so it's not dead, but it's still, there it is, and it's injected into your body. So it's inert, doesn't do anything. But your immune system can still learn enough from it to build antibodies.
That's right.
So that's what a vaccine is, right? It helps your body build antibodies. Is it perfect? No. Can you get sick? Yes. If they didn't chop up the virus well enough, you might get sick. Right? It's possible. People, do frequently get sick. Not really badly sick, just mildly sick. And sometimes there's a really bad reaction. That's very rare. Did it help and save lives? Absolutely. The vaccines have saved millions of people over the years. Certainly, if you look at there's really polio, for example. Polio was a bad one, right? Smallpox, another bad one, right? Killed millions of people, millions. So, but that's the old technology where you take the virus, you finally found it. You had a microscope. We didn't have a microscope before, right? Then we had one. What's all this stuff happening? What's all this here? Well, look at all this stuff.
Germs aren't real, Mackie. Germs aren't real.
No, they're just demons. That's what he knows.
That was what they thought before they could see them. Then they went, man, I was wrong.
That's right. So, but you understood. That's the tech. I get the tech. Here it is, and that's how it works. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. Of course not. But it works well enough. Same with antibiotics. They grew this fungus in a petri dish, and it killed pretty much everything else, all the bacteria. It killed all the bacteria. I go, whoa, what is that? Killed all the bacteria. Let's try it again. It still kills the bacteria. Well, this is pretty good, isn't it? And all of a sudden, we had effective treatment for bacterial infections. We never had that before. The number one cause of death, right, in the olden days, was infections.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Any kind, in childbirth, because there's a lot of blood and a lot of tearing of tissue, and it's not always clean, right? A lot of women would pass away because of the infections sustained.
You could cut yourself shaving with a flat blade.
Oh,
right. We call them cutthroat, and you could die of an infection. You could just have a simple gunshot wound, but rather be just killed from the infection. I know.
100%.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, look, antibiotics.
Woohoo.
That's awesome. Now, what we should have done, we should have kept up our research with bacteriophages as well, but that's not a hint there, but I'm sure we're going to do that as antibiotics become less effective due to overuse. That's us, though. It's our fault. We're overusing it. Now this new tech with vaccines, we're taking genetic information from the virus. Not the virus, but DNA or RNA of the virus, and injecting it into your body. Now the idea is the same as with the old school vaccines, that your body looks at it and builds immunity or antibodies to it. But this RNA is still viable, and
in fact, it makes itself.
Yeah. See, this is the thing, though. A bacterium is a living organism. It reproduces. Okay?
On its own.
Correct. The virus does not. The virus needs your cell factory to produce more copies of itself. It just needs
in the cytosol. That's right.
Correct. So it hijacks your cell and then makes more of itself. That's how it produces. So what's happening with this RNA? That this is, are we? I don't know, right? And I probably have to look more closely at it. But ultimately, what else was in it? And this brings me back, because people say, "Oh, that's just crazy talk, Mackie." Well, is it? Because during Gulf War I and even Gulf War II, I know this is probably beyond the lifespan of some of our listeners, early 90s, there was something called Gulf War syndrome.
That's
when
right.
veterans came back.
Depleted uranium rounds.
Well, that was part
That was
of it.
one of it. Yeah, one of it. Another one was a chemical that they've come in contact with. Was one of the other ones. Yeah.
Now, the key one here, which always worried me, I understand that the soldiers that went off into the war, especially the Americans, maybe some other allies, but definitely the Americans, received a number of injections, vaccines, etc., to, I guess, protect them against any potential biological or chemical warfare that might be coming their way.
Mm-hmm.
There were, I think, about 14, 15, maybe 16
I heard numbers like that.
substances that were never disclosed to the soldiers. So the soldiers had no idea what they're being injected with. Now, they came back sick, and they died, and most of them would be there. Now, this is actually, it was called, so Gulf War syndrome was called a chronic and multi-symptomatic disorder affecting military veterans of both sides of the Gulf War. A wide range of acute chronic symptoms has been linked to it, including fatigue, muscle pain, cognitive problems, insomnia, rashes, and diarrhea. Sounds a bit like
What's this rush that comes and goes? Can you tell me what it means?
Yeah. So, and this is the thing. Now, Johns Hopkins Medicine says this. Gulf War syndrome is a widely used term to refer to the unexplained illnesses occurring in veterans of the 1991 Gulf War.
There was also one of the other conspiracy theories, Mackie, were that they were given supplements in order to make them super soldier-ish.
Yeah.
Not just the immunity and not the depleted rounds and not those things that they were given, but also they would try this. It's only a rumor that they were trialing food additives or water additives to enable them to be more powerful. Who knows? I don't think we'll ever get to the real the real truth of it, but
no, I don't think we will. Because now the latest article I could find on this was blaming sarin gas.
Oh, of course. You don't survive that normally.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? So, and of course, nobody believed that the veterans, they were left to die and be sick on their own without any special help, as far as I understand it. Okay, and it's really a problem, obviously. So, what was in those injections? I don't know. No one knows. It was classified. And this reminds me, because people always tell me, this kind of stuff never happens. This reminds me of another cases rather, people getting sick in the Groom Lake facility.
Oh, that's right. They were in charge of burning piles of refuse, of materials in open pits.
Correct. Now, they all took them to court because they got sick, right? I mean, they actually died of this stuff. And they were not allowed to know what it was that was making them sick, because...
Let's start from the top of this. When they went to court, the government didn't want to acknowledge that 51 existed.
Well, yeah, correct.
And
sorry,
so
Groom Lake
is part of
Area 51. Sorry, I should have said that.
It's part of S4, which is Groom Lake, a subsection of Area 51. So the government didn't want to hear the case because it meant that they had to disclose the fact that they had this secret military base there. It was just Area 51 on the map. That's all it had, no detail. Of course, there it is. And we all know about it. The Russians knew about it. The whole planet knew about it. Except they didn't want to make that something that happened in court. So that was their first battle, was to just be recognised that they were also there and an employee with employee records showing that they did work there, and then that their subtask was responsible for the burn off of these exotic materials.
That's right.
And back to you.
No, but look, I mean, there's there's a really interesting case here, which was published in 1997 by the Washington Post. I'll give you the gist of it. It's a lady here. Her name was, or name is, if she's still alive, Stella Kasha, and she was married to Walter S. Kasha. And he died in 44. Sorry, he fought in 44. Right, he was part of Normandy, earned Bronze Stars, etc., etc. And then he started working in Groom Lake. Right? But eventually he contracted this condition. For years, the doctors couldn't figure out why Wally was coughing so much, why his skin cracked and bled, and turning the bed sheets red. They prescribed andurins, antibiotics, decongestants, painkillers. His guts ached for years too, and when they finally found the kidney cancer, even morphine couldn't help the pain. He died in April of 1995, 73 years old. Okay, and it was Bill Clinton at the time who she was suing. Right, the administration maintained then an abiding interest in the lawsuit Stella Kasha has brought against the federal government. Under presidential determination that he must renew annually, Clinton has decreed that potential evidence related to Kasha's death is classified, top secret, and a matter of national security, and that it is in the paramount interest of the United States that none of it be disclosed. Now, why would this matter? Because he worked at an Air Force base in the Nevada desert. Right? It's called Groom Lake. But it was by presidential decree, not just a court, that the evidence cannot be made available.
Wow.
And another sheet metal worker at Area 51, Robert Frost, died at the age of 57, again from the article here, allegedly from exposure to hazardous wastes. Biopsies showed that his tissues were filled with industrial toxins rarely seen in humans. Men who worked there from the late 1970s into the early 1990s say that inhaling the smoke resulted in persistent respiratory distress, cancers, and strange rashes. Fish scales, the workers call these hard membranes. Some use sandpaper to remove the embarrassing growths from their hands, feet, legs, and arms, but they keep coming back. Okay?
Wow.
Now, what's the government's response to all of this? The government says nothing. The policy is that nothing illegal occurred in Area 51 because officially nothing occurs at Area 51 because it doesn't exist. Employees cannot talk about the work they do. Everything and everyone connected to the base is classified, part of the military's multi-billion-dollar black budget operations. Specific activities, both past and present, cannot be discussed, the Air Force says in the statement.
Great. So you don't have to worry about it. Maggie, in Australia, we had in Newcastle, our airport in Newcastle is a shared military and domestic airport. And it's worldwide known, so it's no secret. And the firefighting foam that they used, because there's also wetlands adjacent to it, it's right on the coastline, and the firefighting foam, which is now discontinued, was toxic. And they'd been doing a training session like once a month forever, as far as anyone was concerned. And there was contaminants going into the waterways, and they said no one's allowed to eat any of the fish. Oh, but we've all been eating it for years. Uh-oh, right? And that was bad.
It's blinky.
Yeah, blinky, that's right. So it's not just the US government, it is all of our governments. And we raised this point a lot, and it's only when it's found out.
Yes.
That everything comes to a head, right? Because, who's toxic? Whose exotic materials were they? Now that we know more and there's more disclosure going on, were these alien materials? Were just blind to, they're being, non-human compatible?
Well,
I wonder.
I want to say, because the thing is this: the Nazis, and this is going back to the massive underground complex they built.
Yes.
Almost
right at the
war,
end, yeah.
Where they had thousands of slave labor workers die of exposure to materials, etc., and we still don't know what it was there for. So it is clear that whatever science is being pursued, it's clear to me that this is clearly some kind of scientific endeavor.
Yeah.
Is highly hazardous to human health, and we just don't know. We're not being told, and maybe they didn't know initially, right? I mean,
yeah.
And not that they care, to be honest with you. Even if they had known, I don't think they would have cared. But now they know. And look, it all connects. Funnily enough, you look at come back to Skinwalker Ranch. There seems to be a military base near it, and not only that, there's another ranch which was owned by Bigelow at the same time as he owned Skinwalker, which seems to have an underground connection, tunnel to a military base.
Yep.
Which they found with, I think, ground penetrating radar. So, is this? I don't know how much more evidence is required for people to stand up and say, what is really going on? Just tell us what you're doing here. Come on.
Yeah.
National security, really? I mean, what national security anymore? I mean, do you think Russia is still a threat? Really? They can't even defeat the Ukraine. China, okay, I'll give you China is a bit of a threat, but you know what? China depends on America as much as America depends on China.
That's right.
Economically, right? Certainly. I mean, what national security here? This is not national security. This is security of the parasites from us.
That's a good point.
If we found out, if we were given the whole disclosure, if you will, right, of all of it, there wouldn't be a single parasite safe on this planet. Not a one. Both the ones that are obviously parasites and ones that are hidden. Because the list of crimes is too egregious to ever be forgiven. No, it is. We have.
I'm laughing because it's true.
This is no longer genocide. This is now specieside.
Yeah.
This is the death toll that is mounting, and not just because of the stuff that happened, but because of the stuff that didn't happen, the omissions, if you will, right? Going to clean energy, for example, which I tell you right now, I think that Tesla and others were onto something. Where's my hydrogen engine? Okay,
that's right.
Where are all the things that I mean, even the cure for cancer and things like that? Okay, do we really think that a lot of these things haven't been worked out yet? The reason you don't give it to the people, it's a very simple reason. Let's say they were a cure for cancer, okay? Let's say, like a generic treatment for all types of cancers, some kind of panacea. You know what would happen? Well, what would happen is that we would live too long. There'd be too many people on the planet. That'd be the argument. Oh, no, there's too many people on the planet. No, can't do it. No. Well, in current circumstances, yes, absolutely. But once we start distributing everything fairly, right? Communism doesn't work. It really doesn't. So we have to find a better system than communism. But what we have today doesn't work either. In fact, that's probably worse than communism because it's killing us. We are in a death economy. We're in a death spiral. On a simple example. I know we've gone way off topic here, but in a simple example, you work for a company, right? And think of the company. This is the world. This is the world. And the company wants to make money. That's good. Money is good. Let's make money. Hurrah! Stock price is important, etc., etc. We want to make our bonuses. $20 million, $50 million, $100 million bonuses, whatever it might be. Now, what do? Oh shoot! I have limited resources, and my customers aren't buying anymore, and my labor cost is expensive. Oh, you know what? I'm going to fire a whole bunch of workers, because if I fire them, I save their money. That is like making money. So you can make money or you save money. Saving money is good. So I'm firing all these workers now, but I can no longer look after my customers because I fired all the people that are doing all the work.
That's right.
Okay. So I'm spiraling down. I'm going to fire more people. Okay, I'm going to fire more people. Great. And okay, I'm saving money again. Share price is happy. Boom. You can do this for a number of years. You really can. I've seen it. But at some point, you have to make real money. right? And this is the same in our world here. At some point, you can no longer spiral down. You have to make a change, and we are spiraling. We're making everybody poorer, except for the parasites, right? People can no longer participate in the economy like they used to, because the middle class is shrinking, right? And the people that are at the bottom that have barely enough to get by, they don't make much of an economic impact anyway. But certainly the middle class does, right? And we're killing it. We're killing the middle class. We're actively killing it. We're taking money away from the middle class. Tax money that is meant to be good for the nation is good for the corporations and the banks.
That's right.
That's who it's good for.
It's better that they have it, Meki, anyway, to be honest with you. So I'm from the government's point of view here. You're absolutely right, Meki. And at some point, I've been calling this the great equalization, where everyone's becoming just as poor as everybody else. We're lifting people up to being poor, and we're driving people down to being poor. I mean, when I say we're lifting people up to be poor, I mean they had much less, and now we can call them the working poor. Before they were just poor, they weren't employed, right? If we equalise everybody, and we core the middle class who had at least a 1 in a million chance of becoming wealthy. Get rid of them. We don't want them. We only want the very poor, and us and not us as Meki and I, but the parasites. They don't want anyone that's anywhere near them. They're building a moat in society.
Yeah. And look, maybe we coined a phrase here, species side. I don't know, but that's certainly what that comes to mind. We don't have any time, of course, to talk about the pineal gland. But what we're going to do next week, we're going to talk about some basics for pineal detox. Very important.
Yes.
Suffice to say, stay away from mercury if you can. But we'll cover it next week. But look, it is really important to understand that all the things that are happening. The reason we started talking about all of this was because of fluoride, right? Just because something is done by the government doesn't mean it's in your best interest.
Mm-hmm.
It is not in your best interest. We are not shepherded, let's call it, by people or entities or whatever you want to call them, parasites that have our best interest at their heart. Not even close.
No, not
this whole
not
nonsense
our best,
about
their best, yes.
Yeah, 100%. By the people, for the people, that nonsense. There's nothing people anymore. There's no, look, we're not very far from the abolition of elections. Because no point anyway. I mean, in America, voter participation is really low, right? So if I was in America, I'd go, you know what, let's just do away with elections. What's the point? No one comes anyway. No one participates.
Spin a chocolate
so
wheel.
We'll just all of us political elites, the colleges and the party officials, we'll just decide who's president. How's that?
That's better.
That works. And
it saves me having to take time off work.
Well, there's that. And you know what? I don't think there'd be much of an outcry these days. I really don't think so. Well, because the thing is this.
I think they'll be quickly pushed out of the way by the AI, who have just go, well, no, you know what, it's me.
Because people say, and look, it's the same here in Australia, right, or anywhere in the world, but they look at the spectrum of candidates. Really? That's who I've got to vote for? Well,
That's right.
What's the point? People go, what's the point? But see, the point is this, guys out there, guys and girls, bobs and boobies, do get involved. You have to. That's the one thing you can do to change things. Get involved, be part of the fucking the conversation.
That's right, part of the conversation. That's what Meki said.
There you go.
I'll stand by it. Hey, this is the end of David and Meki's show. So out. We'll see you Tuesday and Thursday mornings for Plato's Cave. Have a cup of coffee with us, 7 a.m. Eastern.